Well, what the heck's going on? I've got the big bike, left the dirt bikes home, and we're camping. I'm gonna head up to Flagstaff and show you guys a little spot up near there. This over here that we're camped by is Mahan Ranch. Actually, it's called Mahan Park. It's the V-Bar V Ranch. Famous rodeoer called Larry Mahan. I don't know if it was his or his family's or what, but I think NAU owns it now. Well, we find ourselves today in Flagstaff, and we're headed to a little place called Two Guns. As I said before, I'm going to get a little bit of history. Haven't done that in a while. And check out what there is to check out. There's a few layers of history, and hopefully I can fit it all into a one short video for you. I'm going to get out of Flagstaff and head over. Best way to get there is on I-40, so we will only subject you to a couple seconds of that. So catch you there. We just pulled into Two Guns, and we're going to get our bearings here. It's got a little bit to talk about. Well, we're going to head off to our first stop here. Has been raining. Hoping it's not been washed out. There is a little thunder going on, so could wreak a little havoc. Well, this is abandoned section of Route 66. Should get us over to the first stop. And yes, this is the real Route 66. Out there's I-40. Kind of took over for 66 a few decades ago. And there's just little chopped up sections of 66 left. Yeah, this part right here is the original part of Two Guns. And if you look up Two Guns, probably the first picture you'll see is this facade here. It says mountain lions on it. Well, looks like we're going to need to park here. And do a walkabout. Well, seeing as how we're at Two Guns, and you may know if you've been a subscriber to my channel, I carry two guns. I carry a 40, I carry a 38. The 38's filled with snake shot for the creepy crawly snakes. And the 40 cal is for the two-legged snakes. Let's take a walk around Two Guns. Getting a little stormy. All right. Trying to figure out how to get over to those quote-unquote ruined buildings. That weather's looking pretty angry. We found our way here. So these buildings, we'll talk about it later, were part of the exhibits from the original Two Guns mountain lion things. That you see that a lot if you look up Two Guns on the internet. You'll see that building over there. It's a rock building with mountain lions painted on it. And we'll go over a little bit of the early stuff right now. Well, let's start out this part of the story with a little early history. What's out before you there is Canyon Diablo, and it's a very twisty, turny, steep-faced canyon. I believe it's part of or a tributary of the Little Colorado River. And the rock face behind is very craggy and opened up from the water that's been coming through here. And there's a lot of fissures and things like that that opened up into caves. This area, and this goes down to the Mogollon Rim, but this was the Navajo trade route. They'd come through here and bring stuff up, sheep and stuff like that, up from the valley and bring it up this area. And this was their northern homeland. The Spaniards came through here. They were mining silver down in the area, the Phoenix area, and would bring it over to their missions in New Mexico. So fast forward a little bit to the 1800s, 1874, I believe, something like that. And along with all their other problems, the Indians still had their problems with each other. And what was happening was raids back and forth by the Apaches against the Navajos, and I'm sure it was a mutual kind of thing. But the Apaches in 1874 conducted some pretty vicious raids on the Navajo, and the Navajo took great offense to it, obviously. Two particular raids took 3 girls out of one village, and the other, they killed people in both villages and stole everything that they had. So 2 Navajo chiefs, community leaders, however you want to say it, had devised a plan to catch the Apaches, and they kind of flanked them and drove them into this canyon area, and drove them back into one of these caves back here, and they call it the Death Cave, the Apache Death Cave. So what happened was, and you can probably see down in here, and I'm guessing this is the right one, they said it was behind some of the structures, and there was a natural land bridge, which is what I'm standing on, that it was behind, hiding it. Well, that day that they caught up with them, they drove them back into this little corner of the canyon, drove them back in here, and there was about 43 Apache that they drove in here. They all holed up inside this cave and brought their ponies in there with them. It was big enough at one time to get your ponies in there, and they had the 3 girls with them that they had captured. Well, apparently the time they spent in there, they tortured the 3 girls, and they were dead. But the Navajo were so incensed by it that they brought in brush from the nearby canyon. Back then there was a lot more cottonwood trees and things like that, so they just brought on all the brush that they could, piled it down inside, and started on fire. And if I could back up 1 second, the way the Navajos found them is they had fires inside the cave, and the craggy rock up here would let the smoke out, and when they were coming through here, they felt the warmth traveling over the land as they were on foot. Well, back to the story. The Navajo piled up all that brush in front of this hole and started on fire to smoke their, well, actually to kill their adversaries. Once the first round of brush was burned up, one of the Apaches was able to come out, and they negotiated a fake deal looking for the girls, and they found out that the girls were not alive anymore. So they shot the guy that came out and negotiated, and then set to more fire. The Apaches that were inside used what little water they had and slit the throats of their ponies and stacked them up inside to block the smoke and the fire. Once they did that, they drained the blood from the ponies and tried to put the fire out. Once the fire died down, because they went at it pretty good with the fire, the Navajo came back in to take back their belongings and found unspeakable death and destruction in there that left them with the sense that they should never come back here, which they never did. It was always a bad place for them. They haven't come back, and there was stories about it, and that's kind of what Two Guns Miller looked for when he came back here and found it. So we're going to leave here, these stone buildings. We're going to head up there to the 1970s version of everything. Well, before we leave yesteryear and head over and show you what happened more recently in the 60s and 70s when they tried to revive this area. A little cowboy story, a little cowboy life happened out here, obviously. There was cattle ranches and things like that into the 1900s. I think we held on to a lot of our cowboy life when folks had to deal with fences and whatnot. God's given us a little punctuation here. So, not too far from here, there was a town called Diablo, and it was on a wagon route between Flagstaff and Winslow, and right between there was Diablo, and there was a little trading post / bar room / casino. And they weren't the best place to live. Let's just put it that way. They had a high crime rate. So 2 old boys from Cattle Company went off to Winslow. There wasn't much to do here, and decided to go to the big town and have themselves a drink. So they ended up at a bar room in Winslow, and bellied up to the bar, ordered themselves a drink, and before they could even take a sip, they noticed that the gamblers were gambling in silver, a big pile of silver. Well, they looked at each other, nodded, and walked over to the table, withdrew their peacemakers, and demanded all the silver. Hightailed it out of there. So I'll show you what's going on behind me here. They proceeded to leave the building, left their drinks behind, and off they went. Well, back then they had telegraph, obviously, and maybe not telephone, but they called the county sheriff. County sheriff and his deputy jumped on the train and headed back to Flagstaff. Figured that that's where they were headed with their dough. And sheriff got there. Folks there told them that they had seen these folks in Diablo, so they hightailed it back to Diablo and found 2 men trying to run from them. Well, a gunfight ensued. 20 rounds were expended. So 20 rounds between 4 men, that's 5 each. Back then they used to leave one out of the chamber for safety, because if you bang a hammer on a Colt peacemaker, the gun will go off. Well, the deputy, good for him, didn't go by safety, and had 6 rounds in his chamber. While everybody else was spent, he had 1 round left, and he popped one of the 2 cowboys, and he was dead. By then the sheriff had reloaded and took it out on the other cowboy, and they took him back to Flagstaff where he was treated, and they buried the first cowboy right there. So they went back to Winslow and let the bar owner know exactly what happened. And 2 old cowboys from there said, well, they didn't get to finish their drink. So they gathered up a bunch of bottles of whiskey and headed to Diablo. And we're going to give that dead cowboy his last drink. So Notice I said multiple bottles of whiskey. When they got to Canyon Diablo, they found a shallow buried coffin. They dug it up. Old Cowboy number 1 was stiff as a board. They leaned him up against the fence and proceeded to pour copious amounts of whiskey in his mouth to give him the last drink. Yeah, he saw it that evening. I guess they boxed him up, buried him deep, and that was it. The only reason why I know this story is true is that I've seen the picture, and if I can collect it up off the internet, I'll put it right here. So this is the early part of the last century portion of this. This is the Larry Two Guns Miller, where this place got its name from. In the 20s, he put up these rock buildings. So you see the mountain lions. There was a zoo, and across the way there's some Hopi type buildings that we walked through earlier. He's the actual original discoverer of the Death Cave, and from what I understand, he was quite a character. He went on to lease this place to other folks, and this place lived and died several times in its lifespan here. But you'd walk through those gates, and right down in here, these would be the pens where the lions would be. They also had a bunch of other animals in here. Representative of a lot of Arizona animals. And think what you want about it. People got to see a little bit of Arizona as they travel along Route 66. I haven't heard whether they were or were not taken well care of. I would assume if that's your dinner plate, you'd be taking as good a care of them as you could. And this survived right through the 60s and 70s. They had a few revivals here, so we're looking back on the Route 66 bridge and some of the fake cliff dwelling buildings that were built here. So when they built all these buildings out here, the first guy to really come out here and look around before Two Guns noticed that there was this heavy rock on the ground. And we're just a few miles away from Meteor Crater. You can look that up on the internet if you want, but it was an actual meteor strike on Earth, and it spread meteor iron everywhere. And meteor iron has platinum in it, and platinum's worth a lot of money if you know that. Back then it was $36 for iron containing platinum, like a meteorite, and $56 an ounce, which is like megabucks these days. So they actually they picked up like a ton of that stuff. I don't know if it was a ton or what, but they picked up quite a bit, enough to make the guy rich, and sold it. Stuff you can just pick up on the ground in Arizona when people first showed up here. It's pretty cool. Well, the weather's getting a little worse. We're gonna have to do the rest of this thing helmet on the bike. So from here, we're going to take a run into the 1970s. There we go. We're back on 66 almost. You know, with the people I've seen here, someone ought to open this place back up. Attracts a lot of people off the road, especially photographers. Route 66 again. We're heading over there. All right, well, fast forward to 1960s, 1970s, and our Hopi ruins and Death Cave and mountain lions been in and out of possession. And someone said, I am going to do this right. So they built a KOA campground, a gas station, because back then, even now, you're kind of out in the middle of nowhere. Sign indicating it's 2 guns, and I would assume that's where you went over and paid your fee, maybe got a little knick-knacky kind of thing. They had a single wide up here. Got to have a single wide. When you rode in, the kids probably be excited to see the Cowboy painted on the water tanks. And the mountain man over there in your Ford Esquire station wagon. This was the main camp house up here. Probably come up here and get your camp spot. There's a pool. Pool table probably. There's a pool right over there. Of course, there's plenty of graffiti. Everybody's got to mark their territory, I guess. You know, I could imagine stepping out of your pop-up trailer or whatever the heck you were in, heading over here for a nice cool dip and a nice relaxing pool. Must have been like a little sunshade area there. Well, beyond the main building, I don't know if there's anything out here to see. There's a poopy shack. I guess this is where all the camp hookups were. Yeah, you can see the stubs out of the ground. Lots of cattle out here enjoying it now. I don't want to bother them. Wow, they just go on forever. There's a KOA. Pretty highfalutin place back in the day. Well, that's 2 guns. About all I know about it. And I'm sure from what I've seen, there's bunches of different stories, so I may be right or wrong. Anyhow, I appreciate your time watching my video. Please comment, subscribe, like and share. Adios from Two Guns.